Now let's start with section 2. It comprises verbal ability and logical reasoning. We had 10 questions from reading comprehension. We had 9 questions from logical reasoning, and the remaining level was from verbal ability and verbal reasoning. The idea is to spend about 20 to 25 minutes in each of these area, roughly, depending upon which is your strength and which is your weakness, and try and maximize our score. Let's start with the first set of questions, and this is from reading comprehension. The idea is when you're reading the passage, we have to get the main idea, and whatever is the detail, we will leave it in the passage. What we'll try and retain is the main idea. Let's see how to do this. It says the well-known John Searle's Chinese room thought experiment put a man who didn't know Chinese language inside a room with a hypothetical rule book to be used for deciphering text submitted through a slot in the door. So the author in this passage has introduced what is John Searle's Chinese room experiment or Chinese room thought experiment. He's put a man who didn't know Chinese language in a room with a rule book. Using the algorithms in the rule book, the man located the answer to the query and produced it correctly without any understanding of the Chinese language. This seems to be a proof of the fact that the man acted like a machine. So that's a keyword. Okay. So man acted like a machine in the Chinese room thought experiment. This is exactly how a device would deal with the same task, and thus Searle asserted after this, these are the very, very critical sentences. Thus Searle asserted devices can't have real intelligence. Okay. So one is devices can't have real intelligence. There's a position of Searle's, or strong intelligence in the true sense of the word comprehension. So intelligent in the sense of comprehension. I believe sometimes we also face the same while reading comprehension passages. Since they do not have to reason to work out an output and answering the query. So the reason why he is giving this, the reason that he's saying for this is that they do not have the reason to work out any output answer to the input query. The reason is they actually do not have any reason to do whatever they are doing. So if we start from here to here, what you need to understand that all these are details. All this part is detail. Your focus would be on the main idea. So it is about John Searle's position, about Chinese room thought experiment. He has told two key things. He figured out that man acted like a machine, and then he is come to the conclusion that devices can't have real intelligence, and he gives a reason for it. So that's the reasons for his argument. They do not have reason to work out any output answer to the input query. Then it says not all go along with Searle's in his thinking, and one of the most well-known replies called the robot reply will be discussed here. Now this is about Searle's position. Now we'll have to look at what is a robot reply. Individuals giving the robot reply to John Searle's Chinese room reasoning admit that Searle's argument is potent in displaying that a variety of devices, including units that could pass through the well-known Turing test, will not always be intelligent and will not actually comprehend the words that they communicate. Okay, so will not actually comprehend the word that they communicate. One key thing that we understand is in robot reply is okay with the conclusion. Devices cannot comprehend. Okay, so whatever is the conclusion that is made by Searle and the conclusion that is made by Robert seems to be the same. But then what is the problem? The reason is that a machine placed on a table without any sensory technology and any techniques to facilitate a causal interaction with the things in the world is going to be unable to comprehend a language. It is these kind of sentences which we find difficult to comprehend. But we'll try and understand by bits and pieces of information given here. The reason is that machine does not have any sensory technology and any technique to facilitate. Machine is not able to facilitate an interaction with the things in the world. This kind of device could work with symbols, including the phase of generating end results that may deceive humans and consequently pass a Turing test successfully. On the other hand, the word generated by this type of device would be short of one essential component. The words would not convey any thoughtful content and consequently could not eventually be about anything. The issue with the computer resting on a table is that it features no sensory technology as well as no capacity to causally connect with the things in the environment. So that's a restatement. So this is what it is. So the issue is with respect to the reason. Reason is saying no connection with its environment. The reason given by CL is that there is no reason for it to do something, but Robert reply says the reason is no connection with the environment. A solitary desktop computer can be designed to produce all kinds of remarkable phrases about pigs. It could perhaps present a report about pigs and even generate expressive poems. On the other hand, one might carry a pig inside the room and place in over the PC's keyboard, and it would discover not a thing about it. Comprehending what the concept pig signifies demands that a speaker's usage of the term be causally connected to the actual pig. So he is talking about again causal connection. Devoid of that, an essential component required for substantive language is absent. So when we leave out from the passage, this is what you must carry. So it's about comprehension. The topic I'm saying is about comprehension. The passage, of course, is reading comprehension, but the topic is also comprehension. CL's position is device does not have intelligence, cannot comprehend because they don't have any reason to do so. Robert replies device do not comprehend. The reason is no connection with the environment. Those are two things. One important thing that you need to understand when you move is the author, his tone. What is author's position? Is author supporting CL? Is author supporting Robert reply? Nothing can be ascertained from the passage because all that he has done is presented those two positions without telling where he stands. So this kind of passage is what you will call probably a descriptive passage. His purpose of the author is to describe. So now let's try and answer the questions. When you answer the questions, there are three things. The answer choice can be either true based on the passage, can be false based on the passage, and can be uncertain. We do not have enough information from the passage to ascertain whether this is true or false. So your answer choice must be something that is true. When I say true, let's go with 100% true. And what we'll try and do is, if it is false, we'll eliminate. If it is uncertain, we'll eliminate. Let's start with option A. Let's look at the question. The author of the passage would most likely agree to which of the following. The author of the passage has to agree with something. So we need to find out which is definitely true. A. The Robert reply is an authentic and fitting reply to JCL's Chinese room test. Now this talks about a position of the author. In terms of what is author's stance, there is nothing in this passage which will let us to say that it is definitely true. So your option A is an option which is uncertain. Therefore A is not an answer choice. B. Causal data about the pigs needs to be fed into a desktop computer for it to substantially comprehend the meaning of the term pig. Whether or not it will comprehend the meaning of the term pig it will be false. Because what the passage is clearly telling us is that since there is no reason, since there is no connection with the environment, the device is not going to comprehend. Therefore, to say that the computer will substantially comprehend the meaning of the term pig would be something that is definitely false. It can't be B. C. There are robot controlling digital computers which are intelligent, are able to comprehend language. Whether there are certain robots which are able to comprehend language is not mentioned in the passage at all, and this, what I will say, is alien or out of the scope of what is in the passage. So option C is uncertain. We do not know for sure whether the author will agree or not agree. So what we are left with is only option D, which is none of the above. The Turing test is most likely to be. This is a slightly tough one, but using this concept, true, false, uncertain, let's see, at least we can eliminate. So we probably will have to go back and read about Turing test. Let's do that once. This is what it says. Individuals, Robert replied to John Searle's Chinese reply. Reasoning admit that Searle's argument is potent in displaying that a variety of devices, including the units that could pass the well-known Turing test. So all we know is a variety of devices, including some of them that pass the Turing test. So variety of devices, there are some devices which can pass Turing test. That's all we know. Is there anything else about Turing test? There's one more Turing test. Let's check this one. This kind of device could work with symbols, including the phase of generating end results that may deceive human beings and consequently pass the Turing test. So again, the same thing. All we know from the passage is that there are some devices which will pass the Turing test. For those of you who are good with critical reasoning, so what we can conclude is that Turing test is something which is used on devices, or tests which are used on devices. That's all we know from the passage. Now let's look at the options. A test to measure a machine's language of comprehension of language. Maybe. We can't select it, okay, but we'll keep it aside. Test to measure machine. So test for machine. What about the machine? This is uncertain. Okay. B. An analysis of the intelligence of a robot based on his understanding of Chinese. Now this is become very, very narrow or very, very specific. We can definitely say that there is nothing in the passage which says that this particular Turing test is about testing Chinese. So therefore B is definitely incorrect. So B would be incorrect. The reason why it would be incorrect is because the option is narrow or option is very specific. C. A study which makes a study. First of all, this would make it false very clearly. A study which makes a human go through a. Second of all, this would make it false because all we know is Turing test is used on devices. So where does human come in the picture? So very clearly we could say that option C would be a false answer choice. We know that it will be incorrect definitely. So C is not the answer. D. A test to indicate a machine's linguistic understanding based on inputs in the form of symbols only. The moment you see words like this, what I call extreme words, it will make it uncertain. How do I know that Turing test is based on only this kind of thing? A position like this, which is extreme, would be uncertain. So option D is here, which is extreme. So even D goes. Therefore what we are kind of left with is option A. Now let's look at question number 33. The author provides the illustration about pigs. Why did author bring pigs? This is where the pig is come. The pig is come to kind of support the robot reply. And what does the robot reply say? Machine or devices cannot connect with environment. That's what it kind of says. So we want to look at an option which takes one of these positions. Let's look at A. Prove that a solitary desktop computer has the ability to produce reports or even compose poem about pigs. False. Clearly. Why? Because we are looking at one of these two. The author brought in pigs to support robot reply. Option B. Show that devoid of a causal connection to the environment, a machine's understanding of substantial language is limited. This looks absolutely true. This is exactly the position. that we identified, but let's check C and D. Substantiate that despite the lack of causal connection with the pigs, a desktop computer is capable of producing reports. The author is not supporting desktop computer at all. So the purpose of the pig is not to support desktop computer. The purpose for the pig was to support the robot reply. So C is definitely false. We can say that is false. D. State that Chinese room argument is successful in exhibiting that any digital computer is intelligent. So this is clearly contradicts. So this is also false. These were easy options because we can easily say that these were all false. The difficult options is when it is uncertain, when things become uncertain. So our answer choice is B. That is definitely the true answer based on the passage. Question 34 to 36. Another reading comprehension passage. This passage was an easy read, but there were some questions which were a little tricky to handle. Let's quickly understand what the passage is all about. Now when you read the first sentence itself, the author clearly puts his position very clearly. He says, you want to understand how bad things are in Hollywood right now. So very clearly he has pushed his position in place. So this is a very key statement. Then how stifling and airless and cautious the atmosphere is, how little nourishment or encouragement a good new idea receives, and how devoid of ambition the horizon currently appears. It helps to start with a success story. It kind of gives the lack of encouragement a good idea receives. Let's look at this. Consider years ago an ace filmmaker, the man who happened to direct the third highest grossing movie in US history, The Dark Knight, came up with an idea for a big summer movie. It's a story he loved. In fact, he wrote it himself and it belonged to a genre, the sci-fi action thriller that zipped right down the center lane of American popular taste. He cast as his leading man a handsome actor, Leonardo DiCaprio, who happened to star in the second highest grossing movie in the history. Finally, to cover his bet even more, he hired half a dozen Oscar nominees and winner for supporting roles. Nothing much is to be taken from here, a lot of details. So let's continue. Sounds like a sure thing, right? Exactly the kind of movie that a studio would die to have and an audience would kill to see. Well, it was. That film, Christopher Nolan's Inception, received admiring reviews, became last summer's most discussed movie, and has grossed, as of this writing, more than $750 million worldwide. So it's talking about the movie Inception and the fact that movie was really successful. Now he says, now the twist. The studios are trying very hard not to notice this success or to care. Before anybody saw the movie, the buzz within the industry was, it's just a favor Warner Brothers is doing for Nolan because the studio needs him to make Batman 3. After it started to screen, the party line changed. It's too smart for the room, too smart for the summer, too smart for the audience. Just before it opened, it shifted again. Nolan is only a brand name, director to web geeks, and his drawing power is being widely overestimated. After it grossed $62 million on its first weekend, the word was, yeah, that's pretty good. But it just means all the Nolan groupies came out early. Now watch it drop like a stone. And here's what the buzz 3 months later, after Inception became the only release of 2010 to log 11 consecutive weeks in top 10. Well, you never know. Well, you never know is an admission that, purely put simply, things have never been worse. So he gives an example specifically about the movie by Christopher Nolan's Inception. He talks about the movie was successful, but the industry never thought it will be one, and after becoming successful, they were kind of indifferent or did not care. Then it says, it has always been disheartening when good movies flop. It gives endless comfort to those who would rather not have to try to make them and can happily take cover behind a shield labeled the people have spoken. But it's really bad news when the industry essentially rejects a success, when a movie that should have spawned 2 dozen taste-based gambles on passion projects is instead greeted as an unanswerable anomaly. So here is one key thing. The author, so the whole passage we can understand, it's basically about Hollywood has gone bad because the industry is rejecting success, rejecting good ideas. So his whole issue is with respect to the industry. That kind of thinking is why Hollywood studio filmmaking, as 2010 came to its end, was at an all-time low, by which I don't mean that there are fewer really good movies than ever before. Last year had its share and so will 2011, but that it has never been harder for an intelligent, moderately budgeted original movie aimed at adults to get into movie screen worldwide. So again, he makes his position very clear. He is talking about all-time low not because of lack of successes, but basically saying that it is becoming very hard for intelligent, moderately budgeted original movie get onto movie screens. It's true at every studio, says producer Dan Chings, whose credits includes the Oscar winners American Beauty and Milk. Everyone has cut back on not just Oscar-worthy movies, but on dramas, period. Caution has made them pull away. It's infected the entire business. So entire business, a lot of caution. When you leave the passage, you can leave with this thought. It's talking about how bad things are in Hollywood right now. And basically because the fact that it is becoming very harder for intelligent or moderately budgeted original movie aimed at adults to get onto movie screens. And he pushes the case by giving an example of Christopher Nolan's Inception. Now let's look at question number 34, and this starts with a tough question. While the passage was easy to read, this was a tough question. It asks us which of the following best describe the author's approach in the passages. Challenge number 1 is, do we know the meaning of these words? If we know the meaning of the word, one battle is over. Option A says, searingly Pharisaic. Now Pharisee comes from Pharisee. These are prophets. So searingly Pharisaic, it's about being self-righteous. Self-righteous is kind of a position which says, my opinions are right, others' opinions are wrong. That's a position. I am right, you are wrong. Bemoaning, that is to crib or to complain about something. Outrightly honest is easy to understand. Okay. And vehemently condemnatory. Condemnatory basically means it's condemning something. So you can say that it's a kind of extreme position. So one we need to understand to answer this question, what is the purpose of the author? Why did he write this whole passage? Now we clearly see that the reason why author wrote this passage, it talks about how difficult it is. How difficult it is for good movies to get onto the screen. So we want to look at an option which captures this sentiment very so when I say vehemently contemporary, that's pretty extreme. So that is something that you can eliminate first, and you would want to check whether he's outrightly honest. Yes, he may be outrightly honest, but the fact is whether he is honest or not. First of all, whether he's honest or not is something difficult to judge, but doesn't capture this sentiment of the clearly. What it is the fact that the complaining, the author is about complaining about the situation that is happening in the industry today. Therefore, bemoaning would be a best bet. Self-righteous you can eliminate, because when I say my opinions are right, other opinions are wrong, the author had to state what others are saying. Okay, give a counter position, attack the counter position, and then put forward this position and say why he is right. He did not do that. Let's look at question number 35. This was a tough one. We know that we'll have to look at options which are true. We'll eliminate options which are false. Eliminate options which are uncertain. From the above passage, it can be inferred that the studios treated Nolan's movie as described before. So what we are looking at is the reasons why studios did what they did. Let's look at A. They were callous towards the fate of the movie and were too indifferent to care for its unprecedented success. The fact that they were callous towards the movie, towards the fate of the movie, is described in the passage, and the fact that they were indifferent to care for its unprecedented success is also described in the passage. This is described in the passage, so we'll come back to this. Let's look at option B. Nolan was only a brand name director to web geeks, and his drawing power was being widely overestimated. Now this is a part of the gossip that the author mentions. The buzz within the industry. That's where you go. The buzz within the industry. So option B will be uncertain. It's just a buzz within the industry. Whether that is the exact reason is something that we cannot ascertain. So B will be incorrect. Studios were being cautious about betting on new ideas. This is a part of the main idea of the passage. So definitely something that we'll have to keep. In fact, you see that twice. One towards the end, which says caution has made them pull away. And he also starts by saying how cautious the atmosphere is. Okay. So this is definitely one of the options that we'll have to evaluate. They prognosticated that the movie. First of all, the meaning of the word prognosticated. If you don't know the meaning of the word prognosticated, we have to skip it and probably figure out what it means from the context of the sentence. They prognosticated that the movie would crash. So that's foretelling or forecasting or prophesying, okay, that the movie would crash since it had too much of a star-studded cast, including half a dozen Oscar winners, nominees and winners. This would be incorrect or uncertain, because the author introduced the fact that they have Oscar nominees and winners is here. While he introduces Christopher Nolan's movie here, but nothing of it is mentioned. Nothing of this is mentioned when it comes to what studios felt. The studio's position on Oscar nominees a winner is unclear. So therefore it can't be D. So now we'll have to figure out between A and C. Now if you look at the whole question, is asking about the reasons. What can be inferred would be C. The whole passage, the author gives a clear position that is because they're cautious, that they're not willing to bet on new ideas. And since Christopher Nolan's example is put to support that main idea, C would be a better answer choice than A. A just mentions the attitude that the studio seems to have or studio has towards this movie. One cannot say the attitude reflects their reasons. So it is not A. This is a tough one. Okay. So actually, if I look at this particular passage, the passage was easy to read, but there were two questions which were very difficult, and in fact something that if you are ever confused with options, it's better idea not to answer that question. 36. According to the passage, the buzz in the industry about Nolan's inception. Now we talk clearly about buzz. This is an easy question to handle. Definitely started being critical or disapproving. The buzz with the industry, just a favor. After its screen party line change, it's too smart, it's not going to work. And then finally their ending said, well, you never know. Well, even though is an admission that put simply things that never been worse. So also the author says for studios very hard not to notice the success or to care. So the best answer choice would be to move from critical to indifferent. Admiring is clearly incorrect. Appreciative is clearly inserted. There is nothing to suggest that they are being appreciative. On the contrary, they are indifferent. Conciliatory is a position that against it. They were not against it. They were just indifferent to it. Option D. This was the question that you could have solved. One question from this passage. Definitely you should have got it correct. The next set of question is from logical reasoning. And this logical reasoning set may look very confusing, but you are systematic and draw a good diagram and then carefully write down all the conditions. You should be able to answer these questions. So firstly it says 8 members of a party, they are sitting around a circular table. When it comes with circular table, the diagram, instead of drawing it like this, a circular table, it's always a better idea to draw like this. Okay, and this is what we'll use. Now the second problem in this case, or the biggest problem is that some of them are facing the center and the rest are facing outside. So this is going to give us problem in deciding the right and left. So because right and left, so if this is facing the center, this will be the right and this will be the left. But if facing outside, the right and left will interchange. This will become the right and this will become the left. So we probably will have to draw 2 different cases or 3 different cases and then eliminate the ones which does not satisfy all the conditions. Let's see how to solve this question. First is, let's keep a diagram in place. Let's also write down all the 8 names, written down all the names. Now these are bad names when it comes to logical reasoning. We have to write down actually the full name because all the names start with an A. What you'll also realize is that there will be multiple cases. So let me keep the diagram ready. Now let's start. The condition that is most helpful is when 2 people are sitting opposite to each other. But unfortunately, if you look at all the conditions, none of them says that 2 people are sitting opposite to each other. Now we have to first decide whose name will we put first. So I want to look at data which gives us look at condition which gives us maximum data, so that at least we can make a fix of at least 2 or 3 people. Now that is given by both 1 and 2 together. It says Akshay is sitting second to the right of Ankit, who is sitting third to the left of Amit, and Akshay and Amit are not neighbors. So we have Akshay and Amit data given here, Akshay and Amit data given here. So this 2 put together would be very helpful. Let's start with this. Akshay is sitting second to the right of Ankit. So let me put Ankit here. Doesn't matter where you put. Now Akshay is sitting second to the right. So it can be either here or here, depending upon which direction Ankit is facing. So let's consider 2 cases. So Akshay is sitting second to the right of Ankit. So if Ankit is facing the center, Akshay would be here. Here Akshay is facing outside. Sorry, Ankit is facing outside. So Akshay would be here in this case. So we've taken care of 2 names, Ankit, Akshay. Ankit, who is sitting third to the left of Amit. So basically it is 3 positions. So it can be either 1, 2, 3 positions here, 1, 2, 3 positions here. But then it is given that Akshay and Amit are not neighbors. So Amit cannot come here. The only position that Amit can come in this case would be here. So here Amit can come here. Also Ankit is sitting third to the left of Amit. So we can also take a fix on the direction at which Amit is facing, third to the left of Amit. In this case he has to face outside, so there will be third to the left of Amit, and in this case is to face inside. It says the neighbors of Ashmit are facing opposite directions. The same is true for the neighbors of Akash, Anikesh and Akshay. Okay, we know that only name that we have currently is Akshay. The neighbors are facing opposite direction, but we don't know which one. So we'll which direction, inside, outside, but which is which we won't know. So we'll leave that condition for the time being. Both the neighbors of Ajay are facing outside. The same is true for the neighbors of Ankit. Okay, so we have Ankit. Both the neighbors are facing outside. Anikesh and Akash, who are sitting between Akash and Amit, are facing the direction opposite to the direction that Akshay and Amit are facing. So Akshay and Amit are facing, that implies that Akshay and Amit are facing the same direction. Here Amit is facing outside, so Akshay will also face outside. Is Amit is facing inside, the Akshay will be facing inside. So Anikesh and Akash who are sitting between Akshay and Amit. So these two positions would be for Anikesh and Akash. So Akash and Anikesh are facing the direction opposite to Akshay and Amit. So they are facing the direction opposite. In this case, they will be facing inside. In this case, they will be facing outside. The name of the person who is the only person sitting between Ankit and Ajay has a minimum number of letters. Ankit and Ajay. So Ajay has to be here. So the minimum number of letters would be An. Ajay has to be here. And this is An. Who's left is Ashmit. Therefore Ashmit is here. So we'll still have to figure out which case is the correct one, or if either both are possible. Let's look at the ones that we missed out. The neighbors of Ashmit are facing opposite directions. Neighbors of Ashmit are facing opposite direction, Ankit and Akshay, so this is fine. Neighbors of Ashmit are facing opposite direction, this is also fine. And the same is true for neighbors of Akash, Anikesh and Akshay. So Akash and Anikesh. So in this case, if Anikesh is here, Amit and Akash will be opposite direction. If Akash is here, Amit and Akash will be opposite direction. So this seems to be fine in this case. Irrespective of where Anikesh is there, Anikesh can be here. If Anikesh is here, Akshay and Akash opposite direction. Anikesh is there, these two are opposite direction. Therefore that does not seem to trouble us. Both the neighbors of Ajay are facing outside. Both the neighbors of Ajay are facing outside. So Ajay is here. Both the neighbors of Ajay are facing outside is fine in this case. Both the neighbors of Ajay are facing outside is not fine. One is facing inside, one is facing outside. So this case would be incorrect. So this is the correct case. Who is sitting third to the left of Ashmit? Ashmit is facing outside. So this will be the left. 1, 2, 3. This position. It can be either Anikesh or Akash. So it will be cannot be determined. Which of the following statement is definitely true? Let's look at each of these cases. A. Ajay and Akash are facing opposite directions. Ajay, we don't know the direction, therefore that we have no information. Therefore A will be wrong. Both the neighbors of Amit are facing towards the center. Both the neighbors of Amit are facing towards the center, which would be incorrect because we don't know about Ajay. Anikesh is sitting second to the left of Ajay. We don't know whether right or left of Ajay. We don't know, so that will be incorrect. So this will be correct. An is the neighbor of both Aniket and Ajay. So D would be the correct answer choice. Ashmit is sitting between. Ashmit is sitting between Ankit and Akshay. Option B. The third reading comprehension passage. Now this passage is a little difficult to comprehend, but then one should not go by the difficult level of passage. And sometimes you will get easy questions as well. So let's see how to handle a passage that is seemingly difficult. Again, the idea is to get to the main idea, leave out the detail. It says the modern experimental investigation of perception involves the study of human eyes and brain to determine the processes involved in converting the sensory stimuli detected by the eyes into meaningful images produced by the mind. Let's leave out the details, but let's understand what he's talking about. He's talking about modern experimental investigation of perception. Okay. Then he goes on to say the investigation of this topic during its history has been studied and influenced by other disciplines such as philosophy. So he's trying to give a historical perspective. A historical perspective to it. and influenced by other disciplines such as philosophy. As theories into this field developed, perception moved from a concept studied by philosophers to a phenomenon of consciousness before establishing itself as something that can be systematically studied by experimentation. So it's about how perception evolved modern and from the past to the modern. So that's the idea. So we'll, for the time being, leave out the details. We'll come back if a question forces us to read the details. Okay. The philosophers of ancient Greece first noted some of the imperative issues regarding perception. Aristotle was an empiricist and thought that the senses perceive the form of essence of an object without appealing directly to its matter. He claimed sense is what has the power of receiving into itself all the sensible forms without the matter. So the key is no matter. That is for Aristotle. Aristotle claimed that senses were passive and conformed to external stimuli and so was reliable. He believed that information detected by the sense organs was being relayed to common sense. Common sense was then able to judge information and convey it to meaningful ideas by appealing to imagination and memory. So we'll not worry too much about this exact detail, but we need to understand that the perspective here is it does not appeal to matter. This highlights the distinction between the stimulation of photosensitive cells in the retina and the mental images that are relayed in the mind. Modern psychology is interested in the processes in the brain which convert visual stimuli detected by photosensitive cells in the retina into meaningful images. For example, God knows what it means, but let me try reading it. Prosopagnosia. Yeah. For example, prosopagnosia is a case where the individual is able to recognize faces as a biological process in the brain which integrate the separate elements of facial features into meaningful image of a face are compromised or damaged. Therefore, the image of a face is coherent, recognizable and perceivable, not merely an aggregation of the facial features. While Aristotle's theory that common sense is responsible for conversion of detected stimuli into mental images was oversimplified. Okay. It emphasized the need for modern philosophy to study which parts of the brain are responsible for converting the nervous impulses from the retina, which are then relayed through the visual cortex into meaningful mental images. His theory began the study of perception, which proposed that perception is not just vision by a structure of the eyes, and so the mental processes involved must be investigated. This is similar to the view held in current psychology. So, too many details, but what we'll understand is talking about investigation of perception, how it started in the past, and Aristotle is mentioned. He talks about common sense and how it's developed to the modern understanding of what perception is through experimentation. Let's look at question number 40. Question number 40 talks about the primary purpose of the passage. What is the primary purpose? The primary purpose of the passage, as we identified, is to give a historical perspective from the past to now with regards to perception. A is wrong at many levels. First of all, it contradicts. Second of all, the primary purpose is not establishing the credentials of Aristotle, and we don't even see perception, which is the key part of the passage. So A is definitely incorrect. B, discussing how modern day experimental study of perception has come a long way from Aristotle's first view on the matter. This kind of gives a sense of the past to now. I will start from Aristotle's first view on matter and how it has reached today. So B seems okay. Let's check C. Critically analyzing Aristotle's theory of perception for its flaws and oversimplicity. No, this would be incorrect. The author's objective is not to attack Aristotle at all. The author's objective is to give a sense of what is from past to now. D, comparing the study of perception in modern psychology with Aristotle's oversimplification. Okay, now the key word is, is he trying to compare the study of perception in modern psychology with Aristotle's oversimplified view about perception? He's not really trying to compare those two things. He's merely stating how it started and where it is now. So D also goes. Your answer option would be B. Based on the passage, which of the following people could be diagnosed with a case of this? I'm not even going to pronounce it. So let's go back and read now what it is, and we'll read it carefully. Okay. It is a case where the individual is unable to recognize faces. Recognize faces. That is very key part. As a biological process in the brain which integrate the separate elements of facial features into meaningful image of a face are compromised or damaged. Therefore, the image of a face is coherent, recognizable and perceivable, not merely an aggregation of the facial features. So the key idea is unable to recognize faces. Let's start with A. A fails to respond to B's greeting when they pass each other in a crowded marketplace. It is not clear whether it is due to recognizing faces or not. It may be that it was too crowded. So this is uncertain. So A can be eliminated. The moment A gets eliminated, all of the above gets eliminated. So we are looking at E, C, D, E and only C. Therefore B also gets eliminated. Okay, let's look at D. D suffers a bullet wound to head. Therefore he cannot recognize the person in the mirror. He cannot recognize the person in the mirror. He is not able to recognize faces. So C is perfect fit even if it's own. C has to be there. So only E gets eliminated. Let's check for D. Z, after recovering from a head injury, is shown pictures of her dog and she mistakenly called Bozo, but the dog's actual name is Tobo. So mistakenly calling, it's not calls, it's not about she's forgotten the dog's name. So but what we say, the key thing is about recognizing faces. So D cannot be the part of the answer. Since Z cannot be the part of the answer, only option is C. 42. The author is likely to agree with which of the following about Aristotle's theory of perception as described in the passage. So let's look at options and quickly eliminate some of them. A can be eliminated. Aristotle's theory was far-fetched. Now this is a very strong position. I don't think that author has given us any sense that he takes such a harsh position on Aristotle's theory. In fact, he was also praising Aristotle a bit here and there. So this would be something that can be eliminated. B. Modern studies and tests of mental processes involved in perception have strengthened Aristotle's claim. Now the key thing is have strengthened Aristotle's claim. That makes it uncertain. If you look at it, authors have never said that the modern studies have strengthened what Aristotle has said. So B would be incorrect. Let's look at C. Aristotle's theory of perception paved the way for modern studies of perception. This can be easily identified. It's here. His theory began the study of perception, which proposed that perception is not vision, so on and so forth. So this statement would be true. Okay, let's check for D. Aristotle relied on theory and insight rather than observation. What Aristotle relied on is something that is not mentioned in the passage at all. So this would be incorrect. Answer option would be C. 43. In the light of the passage, which one of the following questions would you be most likely to ask the author? This is a tough one. So the kind of question that you want to ask is something, one, relevant, two, not answered. Okay, these are the two things that you need to note. Let's eliminate the things that are not relevant and already answered. How did Aristotle's theory lay the groundwork for modern day experimental research of perception? This is all the passage all about. Already has painfully author has explained this. Why you want to ask this question again? What are the methods of investigating the mental process involved in the conversion of visual stimuli to meaningful information? Now the question is about methods of investigation. This is not answered in the passage. So this could be a question. So we leave it aside. This is where it ended. If you look at the passage, this is where it ended. The mental process involved must be investigated. So a good question to ask would be B is okay. Let's look at C. Is a perception a mere concept or a more advanced phenomenon of consciousness? The passage has already answered this question. It's already answered here. Look at this. As theories into this field first developed, perception moved from a concept studied by philosopher to a phenomenon of consciousness before establishing itself as something that can be systematically studied by experimentation. Option D. What are the biological processes involved in the way the human eye creates the image of an object? This is irrelevant. The relevant question to ask is what involving perception. This talks more about what we visualize, and he wants to know about biological process of how human eye creates an object. That is not relevant, at least to ask this author. You might want to ask someone else. What is therefore relevant is option B. Therefore B. This kind of question is a tough one. Every single slot in the CAT last year had a question which is asking the author. A very tricky one, but if you go with this simple idea as to whether it is relevant, not an answer, you'll be able to eliminate the option and get to the answer choice. Question number 44. This is para completion. Okay, this will be my approach. One is, whoever has written this passage must also write this last sentence. Therefore, there should not be any change in style of writing or tone. Second of all, whatever is the idea that he wants to communicate, there should not be any disconnect. It has to be smooth following ideation. So the way in which I'll try and solve this question is using SIT. The best way to look at this kind of question is to look at what will come immediately after the previous sentence. So you kind of read the sentence, focus your attention on the last sentence, and in this case, and whatever is the next sentence has to carry forward that idea. If you look at an option which carries forward the idea and does not violate the style and tone, then you must pick that answer choice. Now let's look at how to solve this question. The Chinese constitution looks quite a bit different from its American counterpart. It states in admirable bluntness, the government strengthens the building of socialist spiritual civilization. Thus, in China, instead of a separation of church and state, you get full synergy. Each church, mosque and temple must prove itself patriotic. The Communist Party, not the Pope, chooses China's Catholic bishop. The party runs an association that offers Chinese Muslims a correct authoritative interpretation of Quran. And as we can see in a recent item of New York Times, Tibetan Buddhism is also being pulled under the party apparatus. Now it talks something very general and moves on to talk about Tibetan Buddhism. Now we want to have an idea with the sentence which carry forward that particular idea. Option A, move over monks. This itself says a very changing tone. Discovering the next human form of the Bodhisattva is a job for the government cadres. Now the question is about tone. The idea is fine. It talks about the Tibetan monks. So the question is about tone. If we don't find anything better than this, we will pick this. So we'll keep this aside. Government strength and spirituality is an oxymoron, and this is completely moves away from idea. Also, there are reasons to believe it also contradicts in a way. C. If you find it strange that the official atheist Communist Party is in the business of selecting reincarnate gods, well, you're not the only one. A quick jump. It doesn't flow smoothly. We just started talking about Tibetan Buddhism, and it goes on to selecting reincarnated God. And also the tone is a serious question. If you find it strange, well, you're not the only one. Suddenly the author seems to take an immediate shift in tone. So this also is a huge problem. D. In fact, the Communist Party is seeking to impose its will on the selection process for Tibetan lamas. So now this, the tone is fine, the style is fine, the idea is in continuation what the author has said. So with D, we can now eliminate A. We already eliminated C. Answer option is D. Let's look at question number 45. Another question on para completion. We will follow the same process. Samuel Taylor Coleridge, The Rime of the Ancient Mariner, is said to be his attempt to bring supernatural terrors to a naturalistic setting. Some critics, while trying to deduce the literary piece, have argued that the moral truth of the poem are not only unintelligible but also irrational. But for the other critics, this irrationality is what gives the poem its greatest quality. So, a quick break. We are talking about specifically to Coleridge, the rhyme of the Asian mariner. So, and then we goes about deduction or deducing the literary piece or analyzing the literary piece. Okay, so what some critics feel and what other critics feel. In analyzing and critiquing Coleridge's poem, an in-depth analysis of the irrational is needed. This irrationality is not Coleridge's failure to explain the supernatural but actually an evidence of his Christian moral code. Further, the poem's irrationality emerges because of the Coleridge's inner conflict from his conversion from Unitarianism to the Anglican religion. So, if you quickly analyze the passage to get the flow of idea, we'll keep in mind tone and style of writing. More importantly, tone, but just to get an idea. The author started talking about, introduces Asian mariner. Coleridge's poem talks about what some critics feel, that it is unintelligible and irrational, but then it talks about other critics that irrationality which gives the greatest quality. Then the author takes a position. He says that irrational is needed, in-depth analysis of irrational is needed, and he says that this irrational is not Coleridge's failure to explain the supernatural, but actually an evidence of his Christian moral code. So we want to have the same flow of idea. Let's see which option fails the test. A. The poem is in the form of narrative so suddenly he's explaining the poem. There's no need why the huge jump in idea. So A would be incorrect. The hermeneutic must be in mind when attempting to interpret Coleridge's poem. The first problem is this. What is the meaning of this? So if you don't know the meaning, we're going to interpret that something must be kept in mind when attempting to interpret Coleridge's poem. We're talking about interpreting Coleridge's poem. So this is in line with the same idea that the author wants to tell us. Even if we don't know the meaning of this particular word, we'll keep B aside. Apparently this means the method of interpretation. That's what it means. Anyway, without knowing the meaning of this word also, we kept this aside, because at least the word interpret is there. Okay. C. Similarly, the mariner's voyage does not deal with the physical voyage. So this is a huge jump. Similar to what? The poem's irrationality emerges further. The poem's irrationality emerges because of the Coleridge's inner conflict with his conversion from the Unitarianism to Anglican religion. Similarly, the mariner's voyage does not deal with the physical voyage, but it talks about voyage. So clearly C can be eliminated. D. We must first look at how earlier critics have looked at Coleridge's work through Christian eyes. Now if you look at this particular option, you start by saying we must first look. When we say we must first look, he should have completed something and starting a new chain of thought. So between option B and D, what you want to pick is option B, because that continues with the flow. Option D assumes that the flow is over and starts with a new chain of thought. So when you have options like this, you always pick the option which continues the flow. Always. That will be the correct answer choice. Anything that gives a new thought, you must always eliminate. Question number 46 to 48, logical reasoning question. Another question where you have to draw a neat diagram and list down all the conditions and then go about systematically to arrive at the answers. So what is given? In a class there were 6 lectures of 1 hour each every day from Monday to Saturday, with half-hour break after the 3rd lecture. These lectures were taken by 3 faculty members, Rahul, Rohit and Raj, with 2 lectures each by each member on each day. Okay, let's put the basic structure in place. So there are 6 lectures, 1 hour each, Monday to Saturday, half an hour break after 3rd lecture. So let's create a table. So we have our table ready. Lectures 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and days Monday to Saturday. There are 3 people, Rahul, Rohit and Raj. So I'm going to code Rahul as A, Rohit as O, Raj as J, and it is given that two lectures by each members on each day. So what we need is AA, OO, JJ, some combination of that in every week. Let's start. Rahul, who did not take the last lecture on any day, took his lecture continuously without a break. So that is condition number 1. Rahul took a lecture continuously without any break. On the last lecture was not taken by Rahul. So none of these lectures were taken by Rahul. So that is the first condition. Raj took at least 1 hour break after his every lecture. So second condition is, so what is not allowed is, this is not allowed. So 2J cannot come together. The third condition, Rahul took first and second lectures on Wednesday and Friday. So that we can put it here, Wednesday and Friday. The lecture schedule of none of the faculty members was identical for 3 or more days of the week. So this probably would be the most crucial data. We'll keep this in mind. Let's look at condition number 5. Raj took, so we're talking about Raj, took third lecture on 4 days. Third lecture on 4 days. And first lecture on 3 days of the week. First lecture on 3 days of the week. Can we put it here? First lecture on 3 days of the week, third lecture on 4 days? Not yet. Let's look at the sixth condition. The schedule of Rahul on Thursday and Saturday was same. Another important one. Then it says, sixth one, the fourth lecture from Wednesday to Saturday was taken by Rohit. The fourth lecture from Wednesday to Saturday was taken by Rohit, who delivered the last lecture only on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. He delivered the last lecture only on Monday, Wednesday and Friday. So these were the obvious ones. Now we'll have to start working. Let's start with the obvious one. Wednesday AA, OO, therefore J has to take these 2 slots. And JJ will have to take these 2 slots. So those are the obvious ones. Now we also know that A cannot take these positions, and these are the only time when O has taken 6. Therefore the only J has to come there, and J has to come there, and J has to come there as well. Now let's combine a few things. AA has to be together, and the lecture schedule of none of the faculty was identical for 3 or 4 more days. So AA is here, AA is here. So AA cannot be in these 2 positions because it will be identical, and AA has to be together. A cannot come here. The only position for A in this case would be AA. Same is the case for Saturday. A cannot come here. This position already taken, AA and AA. Therefore AA has to come there. Now let's look at this condition number 5. Raj or J on the third slot had taken the lecture on 4 days. So there are 2 days already done with. So we have to look at this day as well as this day. Now few more things can be filled. We can fill Tuesday. AA is already taken 1 and 2 in 2 cases. Therefore AA cannot come in 1 and 2 in Tuesday. AA has to go 4 and 5 here. The AA goes 4 and 5. OO has to go 1 and 2 in Tuesday. Now again this condition, on the first day, first lecture, J has taken on 3 days. So J, J and J, that's the only possibility. Now O has to go here. O has to go here. E and A has to be together. The 4 and 5 slow has to go to A and O. So looking at all the condition, we have filled the table. Now all we have to do is go and get those 9 marks. Question number 46. On how many days does Rohit take both of his lectures after the lunch break? So we're looking at OO after lunch break, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday and Saturday. 4 days. Who took the second lecture on Tuesday? Tuesday's second lecture is taken by Rohit. During the week, on how many days did both the lectures of Raj precede the lecture of Rohit? So we want 2J and after that a no. 2J after not a no, not on Monday, not on Tuesday, not on Wednesday, not on Thursday, not on Friday, and not on Saturday as well. So none of these. It had to be 0. Question number 49. Now these kind of questions are normally a toughie. 4 sentences are given below, labeled A, B, C and D. Of these, 3 sentences need to be arranged in a logical order to form a coherent paragraph or passage. From the given options, choose the one that does not fit in the sequence. Now, basic rule 1, it has to be written by the same author. So the style has to be the same. And the tone has to be the same. And 2, the idea again has to be the same. So we will try and use these to eliminate. Or if another thing that you can do is any 2 sentences are mandatory pairs. If 2 sentences are connected together, then we know that they have to be a part of the sentence. We'll try and use all of these or some of these at least to answer the question. Let's read. There are 5 electorate branches, one representing each state federal electorate that are responsible for choosing candidates at all levels of government. A very broad statement which talks about the electorate branches and explains what it is. B. The state executive is responsible for the day-to-day administration of the party. A broad statement. The style, idea and tone seems to be connected. A, B. C. Following the 2005 elections, there were 10 elected green councils, specific about 2005 election. The Tasmanian Greens, together with other state and territory parties, form the Australian Greens. Again, a broad statement. So you might see these greens here and hope that this will get connected. Okay, and then you see that this A and B is connected. So that is where the confusion starts. So in one sense you can look, okay, A and B is connected. Another sense you will see and see C and D is connected. So then which one will you eliminate? So what you have to then see is, you look at A is broad, B is making a broad statement, D is making a broad statement, and E is more specific. Therefore E is out of place. So your answer choice would be E, not A, B or D. We will try and look at each of this either by style or by identifying pairs or understanding any deviation idea or the tone. Let's start with A. Central Station is the story of a retired school teacher who writes letters for illiterate people at Rio de Janeiro's Central Railroad Station. So it talks about Central Station is a story of a retired school teacher. Let's look at B. She spends the day listening to the people's innermost fears and fantasies, but she doesn't bother to mail the letters. The ideas seem to be connected between A and B. Dora evolves imperceptibly into a woman whose tragedy sears her hearts. And D. Dora, played by Fernanda Montenegro, is hard-edged, joyless and deeply cynical. So A has to be there for sure because it talks about the story, and B, C, D are specific about the character. Now which one of these B, C, D would you eliminate? Now if you look at the tone here, it seems to be positive as a tone. Imperceptibly into a woman whose tragedy sears her hearts. But if you look at the tone of B, she spent the day listening to people's innermost fears and fantasies, but she doesn't bother to mail the letter. Slightly negative as a tone. If you look at D, Dora, played by Fernanda Montenegro, is hard-edged, joyless and deeply cynical. So again negative as a tone. So you have to eliminate B and D because their tone is almost similar. Our answer choice would be C. So A, B and D will form the sentences of the coherent paragraph, and C is what is out of place because the tone is positive, and B and D tone is slightly negative. Question number 51 is on grammar. We'll have to spot the error. Even if you're not very good in grammar like how I am, at least you must understand how to spot errors. There are few errors that you must know. One is about subject verb agreement, verb time sequence, errors that happens in modifiers, comparison, parallelism, pronouns, idioms. At least this basic error. You must learn to identify error and then try and eliminate options. See if you can identify anything obvious. Then you eliminate option. Then you check again. And if you're lucky, you'll be able to eliminate 3. If you're unlucky, then we have to go to the next question. Now if you're very good in grammar, these are gifts for you. A says 3 days at Whitehead completed his narrative, but when he had copied it carefully in the large scroll that was easy to read. See, he learned from rhetoric he picked up in the library that there are such things. So one is tense. It should be where. Learned, copied. So that is an obvious error. So therefore you know that D is incorrect. Therefore D must be part of your answer choice. So none of the above gets eliminated. C gets eliminated. It will be either A or D or B or D. Now you have to spot the error. Now if you're able to spot the error, you're through. Otherwise you probably will have to go to the next one. The error is here. Okay, but when he had copied it carefully in the large scroll, it would be in a large scroll. It's the issue with the article used. So you're able to identify this, then you will say B and D is the right answer choice. Let's look at 52. This is either you know or you don't know. Nothing can be done with questions like this. The word given below has been used in the given sentences in 4 different ways. Choose the option corresponding to the sentence in which the usage of the word is incorrect or inappropriate. Just hope that you know this. And the word is marry. That's an easy word. Then you'll suddenly realize that this question is not all that easy. I still can't believe he married off his daughter. No, that's the right usage. So this can be eliminated. B. The social divide still forces a lot of young people to marry in. Now you must know this usage. Marry in is in marrying in your community or your caste or something like that. So social divide still forces a lot of people to marry in and avoid conflicts based on social differences. This also is appropriate because we have to choose the one that is incorrect or inappropriate. The 2 lists you send me do not marry up. Marry up means being equal. This would also be correct, therefore eliminated. So it's basically married under. She belongs to an affluent family but married under herself for a love. It is marrying below one's social strata or status. So it will be married below, not married under. Now you must know this. If you don't know this, at least you hope that you should know 3 of the others. Answer choice is D. The same is the case with this sentence, row. The problem again is with D. You don't line up on a row, it's line up in a row. That's the usage. The prisoners were lined up in a row and the captain ordered the firing squad to shoot. Now, sentence completion. My work order is, we will guess. And then we will look at the option and eliminate. What I mean by guess, we will read the sentence without looking at the options. We will try and guess what would be the possible words that would come here. When I say guess, it is we are not looking at exact word, an idea of what kind of word could come there. So let's read. The scholars who study Greek mythology appear mostly to blank over the origin and early developments of myth, except, so this is the crucial word, except sometimes when they blank on the parallels between Greek and Roman mythology. So when you say except, the clear thing is that there has to be a contrast. These need to be antonyms, so to speak. The scholars who study Greek mythology, appears mostly to either, let's say, fight over the origin, an early developments on the myth, except sometimes when they agree on the parallels between Greek and Roman mythology. That is one choice. Or the other choice would be appear to agree over the origin and early development of the myth, except sometimes when they fight on the parallel, something like this. So fight, agree, or agree, fight. But the key thing is there has to be a contrast. So a debate, disagree, that can be eliminated clearly. So that does not give a contrast, it means the same. Quarrel or conquer, fight, agree. So B is in line with what we derived. Scrutinize, squabble. Now here is where the problems start. We need to know the meaning of these words. But scrutinize does not give a sense of a fight. The scholars who study Greek mythology appear mostly to scrutinize over the origin. That does not make sense. So C can be eliminated. Repudiate and vex. Now, if you don't know the meaning, take a heart and mark B. And if you know the meaning, you know that answer has to be B. Why? Repudiate is like reject. Is to annoy. So those are not antonyms. So B is the right answer choice. The key is to guess and then eliminate. Let's look at question number 55. We will use the same logic. We will guess and then we will eliminate. Or we'll choose, whichever is easier to do. So let's read. A zigzag line of windows cuts off on the base of the building, blank with welcome sunlight. The once blank interior. Okay, so it said the once blank interior was welcomed. So one, it suggests that these two has to contrast. And also we can take a guess. A zigzag line of windows cuts off on the base of the building something that says bright of sunlight, which was once dark interior. So something like this is what we want to see, and we find that in option A straight away. Eliminating is something that is bright, tenebrous is something that is dark or murky. So option A would be the perfect answer choice. Question number 56, it's a para jumble. A few things. One is, don't start looking at each of the option and check which one is right or wrong. It will completely confuse you. Second, don't look for the start or the end, but always look for connections. The start and the end may be very tricky. Connections is what you are trying to look at. So when you read, you are looking at words or keywords which require some kind of connection. Let's start with A. It is also. So first is it requires some kind of connection. Also is a keyword. Extends an idea. It is also one of the most frequently stolen books from the public libraries in the United States. B. The book itself holds a world record, which means it is referring to one book which has already been stated. Also world record as the best. Itself is another keyword. Itself holds a world record as the best-selling copyrighted books of all time. C. A reference book published annually. It contains. So it is explaining something. A reference book, it contains a collection of world records, both human achievements and the extremes of the natural world. So here you can immediately see a collection of world records, and the book itself holds a world record. So we can see that these two are connected. So you're looking at a connection from C to B. You're looking at the connection from C to B. If you get this connection, just go check. C to B is there. This is not C to B connection. This can be eliminated. This is not C to B connection. This can be eliminated. This we will not eliminate because there is still a connection. We still don't know whether it's an immediate connection, but definitely we know that C and D can be eliminated. If you look at E, both the options that we have ends with the E. So we don't have to bother too much. Okay, let's look at any other connect. Now very clearly, now since it is ending with the E, it has to start with the D. So because there's a it, I have to introduce the Guinness Book of Records and then go. So the D will come before C. The only option now is A. The right answer choice is A. So make connections first and then eliminate. Let's look at question number 57. Again, we'll try for connection, but let's analyze each of these. A commonly cited example is the physical. So there's an example to something. It needs support. A commonly cited example to something is a physical and spiritual ascending into heaven of a character while she is hanging the laundry out to dry in one of the 100 Years of Solitude. Reality is an important theme in all of Garcia Marquez's work. So this is a statement in itself. Does not seem any connect, but we'll not say that this is going to start with B or something. That'll be a mistake. Just leave B as it is. We are looking at pairs or connections. See, in his other works, we're talking about other works. Okay, so that's a key word. In his other works, he experimented more with less traditional approaches to reality, so that the most frightening, the most unusual thing are told with a deadpan expression. Now, experimented with less traditional approaches to reality, so unusual things are told, and then you see this example where something ascending into heaven. So very clearly, CA is a definite pair. We can see CA in option C, we can see CA in option B. A and D can get eliminated. The style of these works fit in the marvelous realm described by the Cuban writer Alejo Carpentier and was labeled as magical realism. So these works, which would be, so we know that B, after B, D has to come, after B, C has to come, after C, A has to come. That's a connect that we had so far. In which case, these two options say it has to start with a B. Let's look at E. He said of his earlier works, nobody writes to the colonel in evil hour and the big mama's funeral all reflect the reality of life in Colombia, and this theme determines the rational structure of this book. Talking about this theme, reality is an important theme about Garcia Marquez's works, and he said of his earlier works. We can see a connect between B and E. Okay, so this goes from B, D to E. You will find that C is a better bet. The last set of LR and the last set of questions. Let's look at this. 6 friends. There are 6 friends who boarded a train from 6 different stations, and it's also given the train which originates from Delhi passes to the aforementioned station in the given order. So we can see there will be a linear arrangement with regards to the stations, as we will keep a note of this while making the table. Each of the 6 friends travel in 6 different coach, and we have got 4 different items, and one item we're going to put in the column, another 3 items we will put in the row. So we'll have to decide first decision as to what to put in the column and what to put in the row. We will put these in the column because there's a linear arrangement. So let's first create a table first. So they have the table. So this is Delhi, Faridabad, Palwal, Mathura, Bhopal, Ahmedabad. Then there are the 6 friends, the 6 coaches, and the 3 berth. So let's look at the conditions. Jayant, whose coach does not contain a prime number, was the first person to board the train. Jayant was the first person to board the train, and coach did not contain a prime number. So it has to be either 1, 4 or 6. That's Jayant. Chiku traveled in a coach that was adjacent to the coach of Mohan. It can be 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5 or 5, 6. Mohan and Ankur boarded the train from 2 consecutive stations in the same order. Mohan, Ankur. So it will be either MA, MA, MA or MA. Hemant boarded the coach from a train from Bhopal, and Vikas traveled in B4. Hemant from Bhopal and Vikas traveled in 4. So when Vikas traveled in 4, these 2 cases is gone for C and M. No 2 persons who traveled in two adjacent coaches had the same berth. We'll come to this later. The persons who boarded the train from Faridabad and Mathura had UB. Faridabad had UB, Mathura had UB. Chiku boarded the train before Mohan. So Chiku boarded the train before Mohan. We know that Mohan, M and A boarded the train consecutive station. So C has to come before M and A. For M and A, the only two possibilities were FP or PM. Therefore, the only possibility now is CMA, which means V has to go there along with V4 would come. Mohan, who travelled in B2, did not have a lower berth. Mohan travelled in 2, did not have a lower berth. So Mohan did not have a lower berth. Two persons had a lower berth. There were two lower berths. Hemant travelled in B1. Hemant travelled in 1. So 1 goes. Therefore, C and M has to be 2 and 3. M is 2, C has to be equal to 3. So the only possibility now for D is 6, and therefore 5 is left here. Then there's just one thing to handle. No two persons who had travelled in two adjacent coaches had the same berth. So if it is 3 upper berth, 2 and 4 cannot be upper berth. So 2 cannot be upper berth, and Mohan does not travel in lower berth, cannot be upper berth. Therefore, the only possibility is a middle berth. Anything else? 3, 4 and 5. There has to be 2 lower berth. 1 and 4 can be lower berth. 1 and 6 can be lower berth. So anything is now possible. So this is what we'll get once we list down all the cases. Now let's look at the question. Who boarded the train from P? The person who boarded the train from P is M, who is Mohan. What was the berth of the person who travelled in B4? B4 we don't know. Be either A or C. It can't be an upper berth because 5 is an upper berth, therefore 4 cannot be an upper berth. Find the number of stations between the boarding points of the person who travelled in B3 and B6. B3 is here, B6 is here. The number of stations between them is 0. Answer would be none of these. So if you make a good table, list down all the cases and do it systematically, you'll be able to handle these logical reasoning questions. That concludes analysis. Thank you.